That in mind, we are joined by Coach, former Ravens head coach, Super Bowl champ, NFL Network analyst, Coach Tiki and Tierney. How you doing, buddy? How you been?
Doing great today, guys. How are you?
Good.
Awesome.
Good to catch up with you again, Coach. Congrats on the new gig out at Arizona State with Herm as an offensive assistant. How'd that come about? It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I did the Hula Bowl first part of the month. Mike Smith, happens to be my brother-in-law, the former head coach of Atlanta.
Yep.
Had kind of put that together and had a great time. Had a great staff. How about this? I had Wade Phillips was my defensive coordinator. Mike Tice was my line coach. Kevin Sumlin was my receiver coach. Carnell Lake and Mark Collins were on the defensive side. Had a great time. Had a great time with the kids. And that's when Herm and Marvin Lewis, of course, is out there in kind of a similar capacity with Herm at Arizona State. And Ray Anderson, who has been my agent and lawyer for years, the AD at Arizona State. They approached me about it, kind of laid out what they had in mind along the lines of what Marvin had done for them. And it sounded exciting, sounded fun, and so I'm excited to get started with it.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's going to be a good trip for you out there to take on those responsibilities, but not taking on responsibilities of a head coach. And there were 9 openings this year, Brian, and it just felt, I don't know, it felt like nobody knows where they wanted to go. The Giants are the one that we've been most concerned about, obviously, here in New York and locally. And it feels like it's coming down to 2, Brian Flores and Brian Daboll. One is obviously more defensive-minded and Flores and discipline-minded, whereas Daboll is obviously an offensive guru, I guess you could call him, with what he's done with Josh Allen. If you are the Giants organization, they've had so many issues with coaches. They've had so many issues with talent. Which one best suits what the Giants need right now, from your opinion?
You know, that's such an open-ended question because you tend to hire the opposite of what you just fired.
Yeah, that's right.
And we go through cycles. We go through the cycle of former head coaches, and then maybe some college guys, and then of course you're always cycling through the young coordinators. That's kind of the thing right now, piecing together general managers, which has been a lot more upheaval than you normally. And that's because this has become a general manager's game. It has. That's where the authority is. And so these general managers are trying to piece together a combination with sometimes these young coaches where it's, okay, you come in, you just be the guru that we're hiring you to be. Don't worry about the cap. Don't worry about the personnel. Don't worry. You go in your office, we'll shove your meals under the door, and you come out with these genius game plans, and we'll take care of the rest. So that kind of seems the model. Brian Flores, obviously having experience as a head coach now, is a little bit different dynamic for it. I don't know. There's no one right way or one wrong way. Obviously, offensively, Daniel Jones, is he their guy? They've got to get that right. And do they bring in an offensive guy to see if they can indeed salvage that and wrap the right offense around him? You know, there's no absolute one right answer to this.
So we're talking to, Brian Billick, former head coach of the Ravens, Super Bowl champ. You know, if it is Daboll, then Tiki and I are both leaning in that direction. We like Flores, but we both think that the time is really right for Daboll for a multitude of reasons. What of Josh Allen's toolbox is transferable to Daniel Jones specifically? What would Daboll do with Jones to unlock him? What do you see?
Wow, that's a hard one because Josh Allen has become such a dynamic player. Obviously making plays outside the huddle or outside the protection schemes. A little Roethlisberger-esque in terms of just sheer size and shrugging guys off, but also a good athlete that gets outside and can really run and do some damage, but has just, matured so much as a guy from the pocket, which we didn't see early on. Remember coming out of college, out of Wyoming, the question was, he has low completion percentage guy.
Yep.
And that usually doesn't change in the NFL. In the first couple of years, it didn't. So you kind of wondered, okay, is it? But then all of a sudden, that third year just absolutely exploded. So I don't know. No, you're not going to do the things with
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones, that you're going to do with Josh Allen. It's just so. But that's your job as a head coach. You've got to be able to adapt to your personnel. He's had a lot of experience offensively. He'll find the right system. I just can't imagine it's going to look a whole lot like what they did in Buffalo.
Yeah, I agree, by the way. And also, the Bills couldn't run the ball effectively for most of the season. He was adaptable there where he got him to run the ball much better as the season went on. I want to help us with this here because this has been a big theme of the show. So we had Joe Shane on the other day, a new GM for the Giants. And obviously, the Giants have gone sideways organizationally for the better part of a decade. And the general consensus, aside from bad draft picks, blah, 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 is that the owner has been a little, meddlesome's the wrong word, but a little bit too involved. And there's a fear that John Mara will, maybe flex and go with Flores, whereas Shane really wants Daboll. Now, I know that you had a great relationship with ownership in Baltimore, but can you take us and intimately paint a picture of when the head coach really disagrees with the GM or the GM really disagrees with ownership? What are those conversations like, Brian?
Well, with ownership, it's a very short conversation. It's yes, sir, and that's what we'll do. Because at the end of the day, they're gonna write the checks. They're really good, solid organizations, and the New York Giants when you're over the entire stance of time, it has to be an organization that you look at and says, yeah, they've been good. They know what that looks like. If what you're saying is true, and there's a disconnect between ownership and the general manager in terms of who they want to hire as the coach, and they go crosswise with it, you might as well get your resumes up now because that's just not going to work. It is all about piecing that together. And that doesn't mean that you have to always agree. Ozzie Newsome and I had such a great time in Baltimore because of Ozzie Newsome. He was just a great partner. And that doesn't mean we didn't disagree and that we wouldn't scrimmage things around. But at the end of the day, we both had a great deal of respect for what our obligations were. Ozzie in particular really understood what pressures were on me as a head coach and always recognized that. And that's so important because at the end of the day, you do have to have that shared vision as to what you want to get done and how you're going to approach it. And so what kind of style of player are we going to have? So therefore, what kind of players do we need? And everybody's got to be on that same page. So if indeed ownership and the general manager are disagree with one another, they got to scrimmage that out and be on board because otherwise you're starting behind the eight ball, and that's just got no chance of being successful.
Yeah, let me ask you something specific about Brian Flores, at least what we're hearing about him. He's a no-nonsense, going to tell you exactly how he feels about you type of guy. In New York, sometimes that plays, especially, but you have to have success. Do you think it's risky to take that route again for the New York Giants?
Well, and again, New York is unique to the entire league. There's, you might say maybe the Dallas Cowboys and certainly in Chicago, and, there's a lot of storied franchise. But because of it being in the heart of New York and the media center and all that, it's like no other coaching job in the NFL. You definitely have to have, and you're right, to have that thicker skin, no nonsense can work well in New York, but by the same token, you better win. I mean, that's the knock on all of the Bill Belichick proteges.
Yeah.
And his coaching tree is a lot of those guys, because that's what they were in New England. They saw the success of Bill Belichick and come out and say, okay, that's where I'm going to be. Well, Bill Belichick can only be that way because he wins and because he won.
Yeah.
No one would have tolerated that or put up with it if you didn't win. So, you got to have that kind of guy with the thick skin. But you better win because we know what it can be like there when you don't.
Yeah, and it's amazing more organizations don't pick up on this. I mean, pretty much every protege of Belichick bombs because they're trying to replicate Belichick and not be their own person. I mean, it happened to Mangini. It happened a little bit here to Joe Judge. It's happened along the way, and they just keep going to the Patriot tree, and it's not really working. Outside of Belichick. So let me wrap it up with this from my end. We're talking to Brian Billick, Ravens head coach, former Ravens coach, won a Super Bowl. Sorry, Tiki. I got to reset him properly, but that was a great defense. Who do you like? Who's playing in the Super Bowl? Who are we going to see in the Super Bowl?
Well, I think we've got some great games. Obviously Cincinnati, Kansas City has had such a great run, and this is such a big stage for Cincinnati. But who's played better than Joe Burrow over the last 4 to 5 weeks of the season? I mean, this guy is spectacular. For him to do what he did and still get sacked 9 times. He was what, 28 of whatever 30. When he didn't get sacked, he completed every pass. I mean, and what he has done. So, typically when you play Kansas City, it's okay. Well, if it turns into a track meet, you just can't let that happen because you can't keep up. Cincinnati is a team that you can go, you know what, we're okay with a track meet because we can get up and down the field, and if it comes down to just who has the ball last, we're okay with that. So now in Kansas City with that pedigree, would I bet on that? I don't know. This is going to be a big stage for them, big first step. But, boy, Joe Burrow has just been so spectacular. This could be a really, really good game.
Yeah, no, I think they're kind of ahead of schedule. I mean, they were top 5. They picked in the top 5 last year. Now they're in the postseason. Actually, they picked number 1 overall, and now they're in the postseason, almost trying to get to the Super Bowl. Brian, you've been with X-Tech for lots of years. We know them intimately. My kids have worn them when they were at Greenwich High School. AJ's not wearing them at Princeton. I'm trying to get that changed. But tell us about X-Tech pads.
Well, it's been exciting. You've been with us from the beginning. You know that for 9 years, the job that Bob Broderick and Teddy Monica have done in terms of becoming the number 1 pad in all of pro football and the number 1 pad in college football. I mean, it's real clear cut. What's exciting is, like you just alluded to, that parents are now taking ownership of okay, we need to protect our young people in this great game. They can go to xtechpads.com or on Instagram and see what this is about, because this is the best pad. It's the best protection in the game for our players to play this great game. And once they get and recognize that and see the way it's put together, there's no question that this is what our young people ought to be in. And it's fun to watch how parents are now vesting themselves in that process and going to X-Tech pads.
Coach, enjoy the games, and good luck getting things getting off the ground there with Herm out at Arizona State. Thanks for the conversation. Appreciate it, bud.